All right, peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about some new data that shows that after 50 years of homicide data being collected, it shows that black men have the highest homicide rate since 1960. I'm going to break down some of the numbers for you and have a little discussion about what we can expect. Also, Black, Latino, and Palestinian activists will be standing in unity for Gaza and Black lives this weekend in Beverly Hills, California. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Melina Abdullah of Black Lives Matter Grassroots to talk to us about this revolutionary act, unprecedented historical gathering of different folks coming together for one cause. We'll have that conversation. Also, a Florida school is receiving some backlash after a Black 2-year-old was arrested and fingerprinted as part of a Rosa Parks skit. But I got some questions for you folks. We'll have some discussion around that. And later on, I got some stuff for trends posting doing the most as we celebrate, getting ready to celebrate the holiday season. Color purple, everything is happening this weekend. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, y'all, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Friday. Can we give a little something there, team, for today being Friday? Because there we go. That wasn't quite what I had in mind. Y'all can see who's in the holiday spirit around here. So happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks are checking in from all around the country, joining us in our various spaces where the crew can be found, folks. That's right. We're going to share with you where everybody can check us out. But first, make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And of course, we ask for your financial donations to continue to power this movement and for you to be an investor and a stakeholder in this process. So folks, again, go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure you check us out on Amazon platforms. We have a number of different Amazon spaces. One on Amazon News and your Fire TV. Make sure you check us out there. We're also on Amazon Prime Video, where you can find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, the news. And you can find us on the Freeview Network, where we're on now under news, and Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Search for Black Star Network on Plex TV, or find us under Live TV, the news and opinion. Okay, folks, let's check in. Got a Culture Crew roll call going on right now, because folks are checking it. Big shout out to the Culture Crew that are gathering on X, folks, formerly known as Twitter. That's right, the crew is gathering. So big shout out to y'all. Big shout out to y'all. Look at it, the Culture Crew is expanding. We in all different spaces and places. That's right, y'all. Big shout out to my X watchers. Thank you so much for checking in. Big shout out to the Facebook Culture Crew. Oh my gosh, thank y'all so much for checking in. There we go. Let's give them a little something. And of course, where we are, this is the home base, the Culture Crew that's checking in on our on Roland Martin's YouTube page. Big shout out to my crew there. I see them all in. Dexter Hudson, thank you so much, brother. Thank you for checking in. Pauline Hurt, I see you, ma'am. Robert Johnson, thank you so much for checking in. Anastasia Pageant, thank you so much. The ABX girl, I see you. Brian Christian, I see you. Good connecting with you once again. Miss Mary Carr, thank you so much for checking in. Rolos, I hear you. This is something else. Thank you so much. Hype Style, peace for Raji, peace everyone in the Black Star Network and chat room. Peace, Hype Style. Thank you for joining us. Finesse Jones, there it is right there, connecting with you. Conscious Thought, my guy, thank you for checking in. And of course, Junie June, I see you. Got the eyeballs, Junie June. Thank you so much for connecting. Folks, you could do the same. Just join us on Roland Martin's YouTube page to be a part of the chat. Join us on Roland Martin's Facebook page, be a part of the chat on Facebook, or you can join us on X. Big shout out again to the Culture Crew on the X platform. All right, let me introduce another famous person, an important person in this conversation. She joins us here on Fridays, and I'm always happy to have my sister. She gave us a little extra time today because she's like, Faraji, you know what I mean? Things kind of shut down for the holidays. So I can spend some extra time with you. I'm like, I'll take it, because she's always on the move doing some fantastic things for the people, for the community, for the culture. My sister, Corinna Denise, one of our great Culture Crew members. Corinna, look at Corinna checking in with the Perseverance shirt on. We're going to talk about that later. But guess what, though? Why we matching? Why we kind of got like similar colors on?
Because great minds think alike.
That's right, Corinna. That's all I wanted to say. You'll get your check in the mail. Thank you so much.
I'll be on the lookout.
Happy Friday, Corinna. Happy Friday.
Are you ready for the holidays?
You know, I mean,
that's theme music though. All right.
Y'all think this is some wait till the end of the year show? Yeah. Am I ready for the holidays? I guess. All right. So look, Corinna, let's first talk a little bit about what's going on with this situation, with this latest data. I came across this information and I was like, oh, we got to talk about this. This is the data around what's going on with Black men and really 50 years of homicide data, folks. This is the data that was collected by the Council on Criminal Justice. They are a nonpartisan think tank, and they released a report called Trends in Homicide Report, which closely analyzes data on homicides from multiple sources over the past 50 years. Here's what one big piece of this data that we can glean from these numbers very quickly. Then we're going to take a first quick pause. The analysis show, let's show this on the screen, please, Keenan and Lise. Thank you so much. The analysis, I'm looking at second paragraph here, folks. The analysis shows that Black men have had the highest rate of homicide victimization since 1960. That year, the homicide rate for Black men was 42 per 100,000 people. Then by 1970, it was 78 Black men per 100,000. From 1980 to 1989, the rate hovered around 54 per 100,000 people before declining from 2000 to 2019 to around 35 per 100,000. Now, in 2021, the number went back up to 54. But to put it in perspective, the homicide rate for white males has never gone above 8.4 per 100,000 since 1960, according to the study by the Council on Criminal Justice. Very quickly, Corinne, let's get your first thoughts on this. What does that say? That, you know, we're talking about this is 2023. We're about to go into 2024. That means that over the past 63 years, close to 63 years, Black men have had the highest homicide victimization rate than any other group of people.
It's jarring, but not surprising, to be quite honest, for a bunch of reasons, right? I like to have some other data too, showing on the flip side, you know, what were the intentions behind those homicides? Was it, you know, by a partner, a spouse, an enemy, a disagreement? But the rate's too high, and it looks like it's consistently increasing. And of course, unlike our white counterparts, their number has kind of remained the same, unlike us. But yeah, that is very, very high and daunting. And of course, you know, given the temperament of the country right now, a lot of us, you know, for lack of a better word, are being hunted right now in many ways. But I would imagine there's a lot going on behind, you know, why Black men have the highest homicide rate. But yeah, to hear those numbers, wow, it really puts it in perspective. But yeah, I'm not surprised given our
and of course, Corinna, if you did, I mean, we haven't explicitly talked about it here on this platform. Brother Roland has, but firearms, the use of firearms is the number one cause and for this situation of homicide, firearms, guns,
Hmm.
guns, guns. Let
Yeah.
me just say that again, y'all.
Easy
Guns.
accessibility to guns because
Right,
we don't have, you know, substantial gun legislation, right? Where we have those universal background checks. It's easier for you to get a firearm than to go into the grocery store and buy alcohol.
right,
So all
right.
about easy access, not having to be licensed to carry and things like that depending on where you live. So yeah, this is not surprising, and it's not surprising particularly when it comes to us as a people, right? Black people and black men, because we've just seen time and time again. And I would imagine a large percentage too in this data would include all of the brutal police murders that we have seen throughout
Right.
this, if you really
Absolutely.
dissect
Absolutely.
this and break it down.
Absolutely. And there are a number of reasons why. I mean, we can go back and if you look at where we have been in this country since 1960, let's use that date since that's where this data is kind of using that reference point.
Mhm.
So for the past 63 years, what has been the state of the black man in this country? What has been the state of black people in this country, right? And
Yeah.
even though it's very interesting and it speaks volumes that even though we have made some significant gains politically, socially, economically, we got more black people that are making more money, we're in more positions of power. Uh, um, we are going further along in our educational achievement, going to college and whatnot, and there's a lot of first time graduates and things. But this issue here is like our Achilles heel: homicides,
Mm.
gun violence, homicides within the community. Now, there's already a conversation about the fact that one of the researchers made this point. The co-authors of the study, he said, Mr. Ernesto Lopez, he said most homicides are going to be intra-racial within racial groups, but black individuals disproportionately make up a large share of homicide victims.
Wow.
So we're seeing that. It's going to be intra-racial. Now we talk about black on black crime in this country. We
Mhm.
don't we don't emphasize, and I'm sure you saw this too. We don't
Yeah.
talk about how many white people kill other white people in this country, or how many Asian
We
people kill
don't.
other
We
Asian.
don't. And why is that? Why is
It's
this
part. I
topic
think it's
never
part of a
brought to the
narrative.
forefront?
I think it's part of a narrative. I think black people have always traditionally and historically been scapegoats for this country. So
Mm.
it's easier. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, and y'all remember this, when Bush was running for office, Daddy Bush was running for office, when Ronald Reagan was running for office. When you think about the time, once the drug epidemic really hit our communities and it hit it hard, then the black man was public enemy number one.
Mm.
And y'all remember that. That's what old terms about super predators from Hillary Clinton and all that stuff
Mm.
coming out. Like the culture was that if you see a black man, you have to approach him with caution, and he's armed and dangerous all the
Mm.
time.
And he's superhuman. He got superhuman
And he's
strength.
not. He no no no. He's superhuman. He's not human. He's a
Oh,
beast.
well, that too. Yeah.
He's something that needs to be tamed, and all of this. That we were essentially in our nature, we were a dangerous being. So that's been the narrative for years, and it's easy. Like yesterday, we talked about this on the show. I know we got to take a quick pause, but it's easy for like what happened in Boston in 1989. We're about that case where the Boston mayor said yesterday she apologized for those two black men for serving so many times, so many years in prison because of a white woman being killed, only to find out that the husband was responsible for the killing of his own wife, but he blamed it on a black man. How many instances do we
Mm.
see like that? So black men and black people have been a scapegoat for years, and we have often been seen as the reason why this country is in the shape that it's in, right? Even though the science shows that we're just as much victimized as any other group, if not more.
Oh, definitely more. Definitely more.
Yeah,
Definitely more.
yeah. And so this is definitely the ongoing narrative. Very quickly, Monkey Confessions. Good to connect with you, bro. You said still the narrative, especially around election time. Amen.
Mm.
Amen. When they talking about all that stuff about we going to crack down on crime, who are you talking about? You're
Right.
talking about
Right.
mostly black and brown, right? Mostly
Although
black and
they
brown
won't
men.
say that quiet part out loud, but it's us being smart and having to realize and learn how to read between the lines. You know, when they're saying these things, right? It's like they kind of talk in code almost. You know, like cracking down on crime, and we need to take back our country, and you know, they're trying to poison and infiltrate our country. We're not included in that our country, Faraji. You
Absolutely.
know, our community, and we have to be wisen up to that and understand when they speak. There's a certain lingo and a certain code that they're speaking in. You got to learn how to translate that because we are not included in that we necessarily when we hear it, and we got to be cognizant of that. That's
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. I think that's an excellent point. A lot of that coded language. And people are waking up, and I'm not just talking about black folks. I'm talking about white people. I'm talking about a lot of people are waking up
oh
to
yeah,
say, wait
especially
a
this
minute.
younger generation, and that's why
Oh,
they're so scared.
right. Yeah,
You know?
absolutely, absolutely. So I think that it's something that we need to keep in mind, right? And it's unfortunate, but I don't know about a lot, you know, crew, all the brothers in the crew. How many of us suffer from the quote unquote what they call the good black men syndrome,
Mhm.
where you know, if you are a black man, you're doing great work, you're doing positive work in the community for the people in some way, shape, or form. You kind of fall into this thing like, you know, people start to um, differentiate you from the rest of the pack. Like you can't separate me from my brothers. If my brothers aren't good, then I'm not good,
Mm.
right? So you can't. So a lot of times that's what happens. This is like, you know, we hear little comments like, "Oh, you're not like the rest of them. You're
Mm.
different. You different." Or, you know, "I wish more black men was like you." And it's like a lot of black men are like me. It's just that we we make different choices,
Mm.
right? And I mean we think differently, but that's okay. And I know as I grow up and mature as more and more as a man, as a black man, that I respect and I love the differences that my brothers bring to the table. I don't want them all to be the same.
No,
You know
that
what I'm
would be
saying? I don't want us all to be the same way. So I think it speaks volumes, but it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing.
it
And
definitely is a cultural thing.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause. This is interesting, but this lays the foundation, folks, for our next conversation as we talking about how do we continue to do our part to preserve the life of black men and women. And so our very next special guest, Dr. Melina Abdullah from Black Lives Matter's Grassroots, the director. She's going to talk to us about just this issue and more, especially as BLM Grassroots is looking to make a major stand this weekend here in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills, California, this on Saturday, to stand with other groups of folks from the Latino community, the Muslim community, the Palestinian community, to stand for Black lives and to stand for Gaza. So we're going to have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, We're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Rosa.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, joined by my sister, who serves as the Culture Crew member. She's also going to serve as my co-host today, my sister, Corinna Denise, who is a college advisor, educator, political thinker, and just doing some fantastic work in her area of the state of Florida. So, Corinna, I appreciate you so much for your insight. Now, I want to shift gears just a tad, because we are going to be joined by a very special guest today. I'm so happy to have my sister back on with us here on the airwaves of Black Star Network and on The Culture, as we're going to talk about a major demonstration that's going to be happening here in LA on Saturday. The demonstration of a stand, not just talking about one group of people, but we're talking about many groups of people making an unprecedented, historic stand against what's going on in Gaza, standing with the Palestinian people, and standing for Black lives at the same time, Corinna. So we are going to be joined. Let's bring up our very special guest, Dr. Melina Abdullah, who serves as the director for Black Lives Matter Grassroots, as she talks to us about this unprecedented stand between Black, Latinos, Muslims, and Christians and Palestinians as they stand in the city of Beverly Hills, California. They will be making a big stand in Beverly Hills around this issue. Dr. Melina, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Welcome back to The Culture. How are you today, sis?
Greetings. Thanks so much for having me again, brother.
Absolutely, absolutely. First and foremost, Doc, I needed to talk to you about this. Because just in the previous conversation, talking about the homicide rate, the victimization rate of Black men, I'm sure you probably came across some numbers, either this particular report or that similar. First, what's your take on that? What does that say that from 1960, Black men and Black people have had the largest, the highest homicide victimization rate more than any other group of people?
I mean, it harkens back to how we were brought to this country in the first place, right? We were brought here as dehumanized beings. That's what really differentiates chattel slavery in the United States from any form of slavery anywhere else in the world. That it's not just that we were made to work for free, but they attempted to steal our humanity and our divinity and really make us simply the property of white so-called owners. So when you talk about the theft of Black life, Black people being the #1 victims of homicides, right? It harkens back to that there's this process of dehumanization, that our lives don't matter because in a sense, we don't even have lives that belong to us.
So we're even in 2023 going into 2024. And I think this is part of the bigger conversation and the work that BLM Grassroots is all about, is that we got to drive it home that we do not have agency over our own lives and bodies, that that we're constantly fighting to just simply have control, and more importantly, we're constantly fighting for the preservation of our life, whether it's social, political, economic, whatever the case may be. We always have to fight for life.
That's right. And so just like they attempted to steal our humanity, we also have to remember that as they attempt to dehumanize us, we never accepted and swallowed that. So I think that what you're centering is hugely important, that we always said, even though you're attempting to dehumanize us, that's not who we are. We are not just human beings, but connected to each other and connected to the divine. And so we're going to assert our humanity and our divinity. And so I think that fight is also a huge part of the story, the fight to assert who we are authentically, not just the imposed identities.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Molina, let's talk about this direct action that's going to be taking place on Saturday, December 23rd in Beverly Hills, California. Unprecedented collaboration, as y'all have put it out there. This is unprecedented and historic, where you have Black and Palestinian communities coming together from the here in LA. You have the Latino community, you have Muslim unity. There's a lot of different groups of people. Talk to us about this direct action.
Sure. So on Saturday, December 23rd, which is the busiest shopping day of the year, we'll be engaging in our Black Xmas action. And we've been doing this since 2015 in the name of John Crawford. So John Crawford was a young Black father who was murdered inside a Walmart store by police. He was criminalized for simply holding Walmart merchandise, which was a pellet gun. And he was murdered inside that Walmart store. So since his murder, in his honor, we've been talking about the corporate complicity in Black death, how they use policing to protect profits at the expense of Black life. One of the things that we've been doing is trying to pull Black folks, especially, out of this consumerist frenzy that they try to whip us up into around this time of year. This year, we are also recognizing that these same white supremacist capitalist interests that steal Black life in the United States are also financing and fueling genocide in Palestine. And so we're saying that there is no Christmas as usual, that we will not simply allow the wheels of white supremacist capitalism to churn forward as they are stealing Black life here and really Black life globally, and stealing the lives of Palestinians and committing genocide against the Palestinian people. And so that's what the action is on December 23rd. We expect thousands of people to be in the streets. This is a Black and Palestinian solidarity action, and Black Lives Matter Grassroots, we believe, is the first Black organization after October 7th to issue a statement in solidarity with the Palestinian people. We issued our statement on October 9th, and this is a demonstration of that solidarity.
We're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, Corinna and Dr. Molina, I want us to continue the conversation on the other side, because this is so big, such a historic moment. And it's at the same time, it requires us to have some deeper discussions around. So folks, we want to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue our conversation with Dr. Molina Abdullah, Corinna Denise, and of course with you right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Rosa.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be Skit.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us in the conversation. We are joined by my sister, Corinna Denise, Culture crew member, as we talk about the issues. And, of course, we're joining our very special guest today, Dr. Melina Abdullah, who serves as the director for Black Lives Matter Grassroots here in Los Angeles. And she's talking to us about an historic and unprecedented collaboration between Black and Palestinians to get geared up for direct action that's taking place tomorrow, December 23rd at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where Black and Palestinian communities will be descending on the streets of Beverly Hills, California, folks, to demand a number of things, but more importantly, to stand in unity with those who are suffering in Gaza and in the West Bank right now, and those who have suffered here in the streets of America. So for those Black lives, that there are so many names that we can't name them all at this particular point, but those who have lost their lives unjustly. So the work continues to move forward. And Dr. Melina, again, we thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Let's talk about there are lists of demands that this direct action has put out. And I want to put this on the screen here. Let's take a look at this, folks. Take a look at this list. Let's put this one up around the demands. The demonstration demands a ceasefire here and there, an end to the killing of Black people by state-sanctioned and white supremacist violence, and an end to the genocide in Palestine. Since October 7th, more than 26,000 Palestinians, half of them children, have been killed by Israeli occupation forces. And in the United States, more people have been killed by police in 2023 than any other year since the birth of the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, the participants will call for an end to rampant consumerism during the busiest shopping day of the year. And this action aligns with the boycott, divest, and sanction movement, condemning corporate complicity in genocidal practices and promoting sustainable alternatives that prioritize human rights. Wow. So, Dr. Melina, let's talk a little bit about this demand in the United Nations. Well, I know that the U.S. ambassador has just approved, or just agreed rather, to a UN policy to call for a ceasefire. The first time they did it, the U.S. said, no, we're not agreeing to those terms. Now we're seeing this. We're seeing that there's more pressure on President Biden to come to some sort of ceasefire, because the tide and the attitude toward the Israelis has changed, especially here in this country. The conversation about Jewish and anti-Semitism has certainly changed, where we're starting to see a little bit of a different tone coming from the American people. Say, wait a minute, we're giving money to Israel, But then at the same time, we're seeing these numbers, 20,000 plus lives that have already been taken at this expense. So where do we stand? Where does the Black Lives Matter grassroots organization stand right now with how this process is going toward getting a ceasefire?
Right. So we say a ceasefire is the absolute minimum that needs to be called for. We need an immediate ceasefire. We need a ceasefire now, both here and there. But when we talk about what's happening in Palestine, this is something the likes of which we've never seen. The new number is more than 27,000 people killed since October 7th, more than 27,000 Palestinians killed since October 7th. So 77 days, and they've killed 27,000 people. And when I say a ceasefire is the bare minimum, the next number is that 2 million Palestinians have been displaced. 2 million Palestinians have been forcibly removed from their homes, have been forced to flee from their homes. So when I say a ceasefire is the minimum, that means that we don't want to see any more videos. And I know that you watch like I watch. We can't afford to look away as we watch these babies being pulled from the rubble, as we watch things like, doctors have to operate on their own children without anesthesia, and then witness their children die as a result of such pain, right? We don't want to see any more of these videos of children's feet with no bodies attached to them. So a ceasefire is to say that we have to save lives in the immediate. But we also, when we chant free, free Palestine, we have to remember that Palestine is occupied. These are the Israeli occupation forces. This is the Palestinians' homeland. And when you talk about 2 million displaced, forced out of their homes, the leveling of Gaza, that's what, Philadelphia native Netanyahu, he's from Philadelphia. He's not from Israel, right? Their prime minister, Netanyahu, has said his intention is to completely level Gaza. And for what purpose? It's for the purposes that they've been pushing since the beginning of the Nakba, since 1948. It's so that they can take the nation for themselves at the expense of Palestinian life. So we absolutely have to say ceasefire, and beyond that, free Palestine and the occupation.
Corinna, what are your questions, or what are your thoughts as Dr. Molina put that out for us?
Yes, Dr. Molina. I would like to know, those of us who will not be in LA this weekend, how can we support? And are there other Black Lives Matters organizations throughout the country who will be also participating in demonstrations, depending on the state where they live, in solidarity with the main event that's happening in LA?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. So Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, we will be live streaming, so you can tune in to our Instagram at BLM Los Angeles. And Black Xmas is a global movement that Black Lives Matter Grassroots engages in. In your state, in Florida, BLM Grassroots Florida is doing a demonstration, a banner drop tomorrow. And you can follow BLM Grassroots Florida, but all of the actions are listed on our Black Xmas website at blackxmas.org. And that's also linked to blmgrassroots.org, blmgrassroots.org. There are 33 Black Lives Matter Grassroots chapters all around the country, and we're all engaged in this Black Xmas campaign.
Now, and that's a great question, Corinna, so thank you for proposing that. Now, Dr. Molina, one of the things is my team just informed me that the resolution for aid to Gaza was just passed. However, the USA has decided to abstain from that vote for that resolution. When we see these type of things happening, right, and people are saying, well, why are we concerned about what's happening there? Some folks in our chat are saying, well, what happened to the ceasefire in Rwanda and Sierra Leone? Like, how come we're not being as vocal about conflict in that part of the world as much as we are in this part of the world, considering some people believe that Palestinians and Black Palestinians don't care about Black people.
So let's start with the end of your question. We got to remember that the uprising in Ferguson, Palestinians came. Palestinians stood in solidarity with Black people in 2014 when we were in Ferguson in the name of Mike Brown. That we've seen organizations like Palestinian Youth Movement be active in the fight for Black lives. And it doesn't mean that all Palestinians are not anti-Black. There are some Palestinians who are anti-Black, but just as is our history, we have to stand for the right thing. The right thing is no babies should be murdered. The right thing is no land should be occupied and people moved out of their homelands. And so it's only right that we stand. Viewers are absolutely right when they say that there are genocides happening all over the world, from Sudan to Burkina Faso to many other nations. And we do have to pay attention. We are speaking out. There have been a couple of things that we've done, a couple of programs that we've done on our radio program around the genocides happening on the continent of Africa. And what's happening in Palestine is simply unprecedented. The number of people who've been killed is the most in any so-called conflict, in any genocide in global history in this period of time, in this short span of time. So if we let this happen and don't speak up for Palestinian people, if we don't stand in solidarity with Palestinian people, this will be the new kind of precedent. And this is the kind of ramping up of the theft of those who've been dehumanized, because they're dehumanizing Palestinians just as we've been dehumanized. They've created open air prisons just as we live in open air prisons. They've criminalized Palestinian children just as our boys and children are criminalized. If we don't stand up, then this is going to be the ramping up of the dehumanization and really genocide that's meted out against Black people globally.
Absolutely. Corinna, you got a question for Dr. Molina?
Dr. Molina has just been pretty straightforward with, it is what it is and what we're facing. And thank you for clarifying, why the focus, we've been so laser focused on Palestine, because I've also raised those questions too, where we have other war and chaos going on in other parts of the world, but we've been so laser focused here. But to your point, it's been unprecedented killings and mass murder. So that could in turn set a precedent for, almost, I dare say, like a world genocide, right? Like it is that extreme and that serious. So I really appreciate you clarifying the laser focus on Palestine right now, and not to negate, what's happening in other parts of the world as well, which is just as important. And hopefully, with this going on in Palestine right now, it will help to magnify some of the other atrocities happening in other parts of the world as well.
Absolutely. And Dr. Molina, to the point that you just made, I think that, there has been so much talk around this because there's so much money on the table. There's so much investment that the United States has put into Israel, the state of Israel, right? The amount of money, billions of dollars of taxpayers' money is going to the state of Israel for their defense and other things that they think that they need and want and all of those things. So you're talking about taxpayers funding this situation, and then you're, like you said, with corporations gaining from the livelihood, from the death of Palestinian people. I mean, I do understand that there are many other conflicts happening, but this situation between Israel and Palestine in America, this is a very, very serious situation, right? This is like the turnkey for the whole Middle Eastern region as we see it. And so I think that's part of why the concern is there. I know we got like a minute left, but Dr. Molina, from a community organizing standpoint, what do we do after this demonstration? Because people might say, oh, okay, this is another protest, this is another demonstration. But how do we move forward with those partners in mind, with Latinos, with Palestinians, with other organizations in mind? How does that happen?
So we're really grateful to be in solidarity with Palestinian people. So the co-convener, one of the co-conveners of the demonstration tomorrow, Sister Raida Hamida, who's Palestinian, we were at a planning meeting last night, and she was like, sister, I don't want this to be just a one-time thing. And we've spoken and been present at other marches that the Palestinian community has called together. But we think this is the start of long-standing solidarity against white supremacist capitalism and for the empowerment of our people. People should stay engaged too. We don't want to neglect the corporate complicity and the complicity of the American government. When we think about that $120 billion aid package that Joe Biden just pushed through, we got to think about that and how to hold our electeds accountable, how to hold corporations like McDonald's accountable, who is feeding Israeli occupation forces for free, corporations like Starbucks, corporations like Disney. So make sure that we're intentional with the use of our dollars and use our dollars intentionally to build Black community, to build a resistance to white supremacist capitalism that kills Black people in the United States and around the world and is genociding Palestinian people.
Absolutely. Tiz, you said the United States have been giving Israel $4 billion a year. They were also approved for another $14 billion aid package from the United States. Liana R. Brown, you said capital, capital, capital. There it is. And then Real Brooklyn, you said Faraji, boom, you said it, brother. Money. That's the deciding factor. That's the huge factor in this situation. A lot of money is being put into a situation. This president, and I know we don't have time to talk about this today, Dr. Molina, but this president is feeling the heat. He's feeling the heat from the Arab and Muslim community. He's feeling the heat from some Black folks who have been exposed, like Ta-Nehisi Coates and other Black folks who have had the firsthand experience to see what's going on in that part of the world and coming back with reports and say, look, this is not what America is. This is not true what America is telling us. This is even more dire and severe. So we're seeing a difference. So, maybe in another, we can bring you back, Dr. Molina, because this is such a major point for Black voters moving forward in this year's election, that it could be that one issue that tips the vote in some way, shape, or form. And I know, Corinna, you don't like to hear that, but I'm saying
the truth is the truth. And if I may, Faraji, I have one more question for Dr. Molina. How will we be able to actually measure the impact of Black Christmas, right? That we're not spending our dollars, particularly on the largest shopping day. Will Black Lives Matter have some sort of reporting to see the impact that made?
Yes, so already we know we're having an impact. Black Xmas actually runs from Black Friday to January 1st, where we ask people to build Black, invest in Black-led organizations, buy Black. If you're going to buy something, buy from Black businesses that contribute to Black community, and bank Black. Move your money out of these terrible banks like Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, and move them to Black-owned banks. We're already having an impact when you look at how Black-owned businesses have been growing. When you look at how corporations like Starbucks have already suffered $12 billion in losses as a result of these boycotts, we're already having an impact. And of course, we'll report back around how Black Xmas did.
Perhaps we should add Navy Federal Credit Union if you're Black and bank there, considering the recent reports with over 70% of Black applicants were rejected. Just a thought there.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, we got to take a quick pause, but Dr. Molina, what again is the best way for folks around the country to take a watch, or take a look and listen to this direct action tomorrow?
Right. So it'll be on our Black Lives Matter Los Angeles Instagram at BLM Los Angeles. And they can also follow BLM Grassroots on all social media for all the work we're doing around the world.
Absolutely. Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is a tenured professor, she's an author, activist, and serves as one of the great co-founders of the Black Lives Matter grassroots organization as part of Black Lives Matter. Thank you so much, Dr. Melina. And of course, we will certainly bring you back on to give us an update of this action. But thank you for your time, sis.
Thank you so much for having me. Peace.
Absolutely. Peace. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's give you some breaking news, Corinna. They're talking about the Supreme Court has decided not to fast track Donald Trump's case. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, let's talk about the situation of a 2-year-old Black girl who was arrested and fingerprinted down in Florida. Not surprising, but she was down in Florida, and how it created a backlash for the school she's in. We'll have that conversation and a whole lot more. So stay with us. A whole lot is coming at you for the second half of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, and welcome to the second half of the show. I'm also joined by my sister culture crew member, college advisor, activist, and political thinker. My sister, Corinna Denise, is joining me as well as she does every Friday. Corinna, always a pleasure to have you. What a phenomenal discussion that we just had with Dr. Melina Abdullah, the director of Black Lives Matter and director and co-founder Black Lives Matter grassroots, talking about their direct action. A lot has been said around that situation. Black Palestinians, standing together. And you know what? Let me just say this very quickly. Even though it may not be a huge number of Palestinians who stand with Black folk, because I saw some folks in the chat saying, "Hey, well, it's only a couple of people. It's not. It's even though it may not be a huge thing." The fact is that you do have a generation of Palestinians and Black folks and Latino folks. The next generation is moving this conversation of unity further along, more so than their parents did.
Yeah.
And I think that is the group that we need to focus on when we have these discussions. We're talking about, your teenagers, your young adults, your 20-year-olds, your 30-year-olds, right? If they're standing there, we may not get the parents at 60 and 70 years old. That's it is what it is. But if you're talking about getting that next generation of folks to be on the same page, to come together, to say, you know what? I'm tired of the division. I'm tired of the oppression. I'm tired of the biases and all of those things. We do have a common enemy that sits in front of all of us, the enemy of white supremacy, the enemy of white capitalism, right? Like these things, then I think that it would resonate with people. What's your take on that, Corinna?
Yeah, well, it's always been young people, right? Always.
Right,
When you look throughout our
right.
history, it's always been young people who have been in tune to push our movement forward. So yeah, I think we need to definitely lock in and grasp their attention. They're inquisitive, they're impressionable, highly influential, and they're paying attention more than we think. Especially with information being available to us now at the click of a button, right? As opposed to when you and I were growing up, Faraji, we had to dig a little deeper, do a little bit more research, but it's so easily accessible now. So we want to make sure we're having conversations with them, educating them. And yeah, I think we've seen, right, in the last few years, a lot of young people even pushing back against their parents and their beliefs and, how they were raised, challenging them at every opportunity that they can. So yeah, it's always been young people. And I do believe it will always be young people who are at the forefront of pushing forward a movement where we want to make our world right and just.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of making the world right and just, that's a great way to say it. The Supreme Court, it has been announced just a few moments ago, folks, that the Supreme Court has decided not to fast track the case around Donald Trump, and that he is pretty much going to be in the queue of cases, and that even though this was an attempt that Attorney Jack Smith was pushing for, that the case of election interference, the immunity, that whole idea, that particular case would be fast tracked to try to happen before, the election season really kicks off next year. Well, the Supreme Court has decided not to do this. However, I'm not surprised, Corinna.
I was just about to ask you.
I'm not surprised.
Right? It's part of the play, part of the strategy, right, to delay.
Absolutely. And there has been a new recording that has been revealed and released of Donald Trump talking to some other electors. And I'm trying to remember the state, y'all. So I'm going to just ask my team or post that to let me know which.
Michigan? Is that
Michigan, that's what it was. The state of Michigan, of how he was trying to convince those electors in Michigan to essentially commit fraud, voter fraud, trying to say like that he won the state of Michigan. A new recording has just been released about that. But what do we do with this? I mean, the Supreme Court is not going to fast track it. Okay. But and here's the thing. I think a lot of times, and this is unfortunate, I know I'm going to get some backlash for saying this, but it is what it is. It's Friday. I'm not surprised, but even more so with the Supreme Court deciding not to really look at this case. It just goes to show you that how much politics plays into the court. You know what I mean? That if, again, and I said this for Suzette, jokingly yesterday, he put these folks, some of these folks in those positions.
And
why would they prosecute or review a case that can make him look even worse?
Right. Why would they?
Amy Coney Barrett is not going to do that.
Oh, hell no.
Clarence Thomas ain't doing that.
Mm-mm.
Who else is on the court that he, what's the other guy? The one, oh my gosh, what's the justice name?
Samuel Alito.
No, not him. Not Judge John Roberts, not him. Even though he's a Republican.
The guy, I know I think.
He just got to the court. Just got to the court.
Is he the one,
Yes.
one of Trump's appointees?
I think so.
Kavanaugh.
I think so. What's his name?
Brett Kavanaugh?
Yes, Brett Kavanaugh. Right. So do we really, and see, this is part of the reason why, and I don't know, and I wanted to have this conversation with Suzette yesterday. I know we got to take a quick pause, but when you talk about code of ethics for the Supreme Court of the United States.
Does that even really exist anymore? Does it really have any validity anymore?
Right.
you know?
Right. So you're not, I mean, how much effort? Look, we having a problem with Clarence Thomas. Now it's becoming like, it's just all out there. His relationships and all of this stuff, the stuff with his wife, it's all out there, but he's still serving.
You know what about Clarence Thomas, real quick, that is really irritating about that is just the constant, you know, is he going to recuse himself? Is he going to resign? No, he's not going to do either. What we need is a House that would take up, you know, why don't they look into that impeachment inquiry rather than the one that they have on President Biden right now, and get that to the Senate? And, you know, who's to say if the Senate would actually convict? But, you know, it just seems that they don't actually have the guts to do that, because they can, just like you would have impeachment hearings for a president of the United States. The House can have impeachment hearings for Supreme Court justices or other federal judges. That's what needs to happen. Unfortunately, we don't have the makeup in the House for that to happen. And even if we did for Raji, let's say it was maybe 2 years ago, I still don't see them, you know, bringing forth to say, let's go ahead and proceed with an impeachment hearing, because, you know, they just have this standard that they want to impose upon the American public, and like kind of like this surface like facade. And when things really get serious, you know, they have that power, but they're not willing to exercise it.
And that is the problem. That is the problem. The sad part about all of this, Corinna, as we take our next pause, the sad part about all of this is that, one, that those who are committing these type of acts, those who are turning a blind eye, those who are enabling Trump in this type of thinking that he has, they don't see it. And, you know, it's like the scripture said, you know, when certain leaders they go blind, right? They don't see that their actions is not helping, but is only hurting their case more and more and more, right?
Or do you think sometimes they do see, but choose to ignore otherwise?
And see, now, woo! It's one thing to be ignorant, right, Corinna? It's one thing to be ignorant. It's another thing to play dumb.
I think there's a lot of playing dumb.
If you want to act like I didn't see it, the truth is not near me. No. You want to have an address. I always tell people, you have an address in the state of denial. You have a house with a white picket fence in the state of denial. If you want to have an address in the state of denial, then you are putting yourself in worse position, and you're putting this country in a worse position than not knowing at all. It's one thing to be ignorant, like I just completely didn't know. It's another thing to play dumb, like, oh, I didn't know. When you did know, when you knew the truth, when you knew what was right, what was the best thing to do, and you decided not to do it, then you are adding, you playing with fire. You're playing with fire. They operate
from a mentality of survival of the fittest, right? And whatever I need to do to get what I want, and whoever goes down in the process, so be it. Yeah. You know, it's not for the good of all. That's not where they're operating from, you know? So yeah, they have a by any means necessary methodology as well. You know, it's just on the flip side, it ends up being, you know, consequential to us. Absolutely. Very consequential to us. So we will keep our eyes on this situation, of course, next week. And I'm sure first, I know that tonight, probably Brother Roland most likely is going to cover, you know, have some conversation about this. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned to him at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Look, I got to take another quick pause. Let's talk about this 2-year-old down in Corinna's home state of Florida, how the one school is receiving backlash for having this 2-year-old involved in a skit talking about Rosa Parks, where she is quote unquote arrested. She's fingerprinted and arrested. But I got some questions about this case. About this story. So we'll have that conversation. Plus, I got to bring you up to speed on some things that are happening, some good things that are happening for Transpost and Doing the Most for the end of the week as we go into the holiday break. So stay with us. It's all happening, continue to happen here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. All right, let me bring my sister Corinna Denise back into the conversation. Corinna, let's talk about something that's happened in your home state of the state of Florida. And it's always something. Hey, you know, y'all,
always.
Corinna, every time I bring Corinna on, I'll be like, see, like, Faraji, you always bring something on about Florida. And I can't, it's not that I'm looking for Florida news. I'm not subscribed to Florida news.
It just appears, right?
It just happens to float up, and I try not to see. I try to unsee Florida and all the racial issues down in Florida. I just try to unsee it. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing this today, Florida. I'm not doing this today.
I always felt when I was growing up in Florida that we would always be that forgotten state in the South. You would always hear about everywhere else, right? Like Alabama, Mississippi, we're kind of just right there towards the bottom right of the North American continent. But lately, we're just ground zero for all the things.
For everything. I remember when I went to Disney World and growing up as a child, and I used to think that Florida was like magical and heavenly.
Oh,
I was like, oh, like we're going to Florida, like, woo, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, now it's like, we're going to Florida.
Mute.
That's why I moved to California.
Yes.
I wanted warm weather, but I was like, let me go to California.
I hear that.
So let's talk about this situation. This is the situation of a school in Florida that an elementary school where a small child, and I've been waiting to talk about this story, and I have some questions because you are an educator, you work in the educational space, so help me to understand some things. But there was this incident that happened on December 1st. Let's bring up the note around this as NBC News has reported this situation. There was an incident that happened on December 1st when a class of 2- and 3-year-old children were learning about Rosa Parks, the civil rights activist, according to the spokesperson for Building Brains Academy, which is a minority-owned and operated preschool. And how do you pronounce that? Is that Osceola, Florida? Osceola, Florida? How does that? I think it's Osceola.
Osceola?
Osceola? Okay.
Osceola or Ocala?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Osceola, Florida.
Osceola. I always get those two mixed up. But
they always get mixed up. Okay. Well, the girl who the NAACP alleged was the only Black student in the class, she played Rosa Parks during a reenactment of her 1955 address for refusing to give up her seat at the front of the segregated bus. Rosa Parks was a woman that we would teach our daughter, according to the girl's mother, to look up to, but now our memory is stained because now, let's go, I want to just kind of explain the backstory of this. When they took pictures of this skit, of this moment that they were playing, the black girl, the only black girl in class, she was being fingerprinted and arrested. The school building brain said that they did not use any type of real handcuffs or anything. They didn't use any restraints on the little girl, but she was fingerprinted and was arrested as part of this Rosa Parks skit. And so the NAACP down there said, oh, no, this is a problem. Now, the crazy thing is that this role play was not a part of the curriculum. It was spontaneously planned by the teacher. And that Big Brains Academy claimed that it apologized to parents at the school for the incident and communicated their regrets to the NAACP. But a spokesperson for the NAACP, Center for Education, Innovation, and Research, said they are still seeking a more explicit apology for the incident because they felt like by the little black girl participating in this skit, that essentially it will do damage, especially if you're showing a little black girl being arrested. I got questions, Corinna. Here we got a picture of the little black girl, I think. Yeah, there she go. Now, here, y'all crew, talk to me. Hey, Keena, let's make the picture bigger because I want everybody to see this. So you can say thank you. She's doing it. Now, look at the picture, y'all. Now look at the other picture of her got her hands behind her back, Keena. If we could pull that one up too.
Wow.
Now let me ask y'all a question. Now, and this is I'm being dead ass serious about this. Corinna, as one who's been in education and understands this, when you do certain activities that are not quote unquote a part of the curriculum, not planned, is that frowned upon?
You know, before we even go there, the thing that is most disturbing about this, and I've also worked in daycare with this particular age group, I do not even begin to comprehend why 2-year-olds, right? 2-year-olds are reenacting this. Like, do they even have that level of understanding of what's happening and that meaningful, you know, to engage in that? Why would the teacher feel this is okay unless her intentions were to single out the young black little girl, only black little girl in her class? I do not even begin to understand why 2-year-olds would be reenacting a play with Rosa Parks or any play. Do they have that level of comprehension to even understand what they're doing, to understand what's going on? I mean, it would have been one thing if we're having this conversation with a group of elementary kids, middle school kids, high school kids, but 2-year-olds, Faraji?
Yeah.
So for starters, I'm stuck there. That why the hell are the 2-year-olds holding up signs and, I mean, handprint, you know, to reenact Rosa Parks being arrested? That absolutely makes no sense. And I think that should have never happened. But I mean, yes.
But do you teach it? I guess
adding things into their curriculum, but this was completely inappropriate and should not have happened.
I agree. I agree. And I don't know what part of the curriculum called for them to have a conversation about Miss Rosa Parks, unless it's just history. And you know, again, we don't know all the details in terms of certain things, but what part of the curriculum causes them to say, okay, let's talk about Rosa Parks. Matter of fact, let's not talk about Rosa Parks. Let's play it out how the situation has gone. Right.
And they're two.
They're two.
Imagine what you know, 2-year-olds are typically learning, right? Not that you're not supposed to introduce them to some things, but this is a very heavy topic. Would they even walk away with that understanding at the age of 2?
Yeah, especially
you know, you're introducing them to stories and literature and things like that, but to reenact Rosa Parks actually being arrested. And then something else, another question that comes to mind, I wonder if the parents were aware that their children were going to be participating in some sort of scheme prior to it happening. See, that's where they went.
I can answer that question. I can answer that
notification to the parents that this is happening, come see it. So it seems like this was sprung upon the parents as well. And they're actually being ambushed with this, having to see their child, you know, in a moment like this. So that's
the girl's parents.
They should have notified the parents, like, this is what's
here's a couple of things. Like, and I get that. I feel like there are a number of things on each side of the conversation. And look, let's do this. Let's take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation, because I feel like there's some complexities to this conversation. But I think essentially the Big Brains Building Academy was wrong. But there are some complexities, and I think there could be some lessons that we can glean from this incident. So we'll talk a little bit more about that on the other side. Post your comments as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. We're streaming on Roland Martin's Facebook page. If you're on X with us right now, make sure y'all post your tweets as well. And stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. We have been talking about the story of a black two-year-old girl in the state of Florida who was involved in a skit about Rosa Parks. But there are photos of this little girl, as y'all can see there. Let me take me out the frame, please, Ken. Thank you. There's photos of this little girl, of her being fingerprinted and quote-unquote arrested as Mother Rosa Parks was. The problem is this little girl, who is black, was the only black student in the class. And the problem is she was fingerprinted and arrested as a part of the skit. But so this school is in Florida is catching a lot of heat, facing a backlash, with calls from the NAACP and other groups. Photos of this little girl that circulated that circulated on social media by NBC News and others. When the girl's parents pulled her, they pulled her out when they saw the photos of what was going on. They pulled her out of the school within 30 minutes of seeing the images. And they told NBC News they were horrified, folks, horrified. And so now they're trying to figure out how to move forward. The girl's parents reached out to the NAACP, where they also shared photos of the incident. And the NAACP wrote in a letter to the school, "We consider the activity an inappropriate trivialization of a significant historical event insensitive to the struggles against segregation and psychologically harmful to all students involved, especially Black students reenacting such a traumatic moment in American history. Let me bring my sister Corinna Denise back into the conversation. Corinna, you made the point, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds learning about Rosa Parks, learning about her in this way. This was a spontaneously unplanned event within the classroom where the teacher said, oh, let's just do a skit. And so the teacher who represents the organization Big Brains Building Brains Academy, Building Brains Academy, which is a minority-owned and operated preschool in Florida. The teachers, had said that they apologized. They apologized to the parents. They apologized to the NAACP.
Aren't we always sorry, right? How about do something don't do anything to be I'm sorry for? How about that?
Is that possible, Corinna?
It's not impossible.
I'm serious. Is that really, really possible? That and here's the crazy part about this. The crazier part about this is that when people do things like this, people act like it's not 2023. It's almost like, and I know, crew. We have a lot of great people that watch this show. We got a lot of our crew members. Not only y'all watch, y'all engage and stuff, but then I really think about people must not be paying attention to what's going on around them, right? And I'm not talking about all over the world and all of that stuff. I'm talking about right here in America. There's no way in the world that you thought that this was a good idea in modern day, racially divisive, partisan-driven America in 2023.
I don't think it's that, Faraji. They're not thinking that it's not a good idea. And Keenan mentioned something here saying like they're playing a very long and insidious game, right? Where these images will be long lasting, right? So that it will influence people to comment on them, all kind of insidious things. I just thought about something too. I wonder, it would be interesting to know how the teacher actually rehearsed these 2-year-olds, right? Did she write the script? Did she put the play together? Like, how did that come about? And, I wonder in the moment, I wonder what the other parents thought too, not just the parents of the little girl who obviously was put on display, but the other parents. I wonder if they felt uncomfortable, for a matter of words, or, just jarred that, number one, the teacher would even have 2-year-olds doing this, that the only Black little girl in the classroom was singled out to play Rosa Parks. And even in that moment, even if she wanted to enact Rosa Parks, why would you add in that part? A scene where she's arrested and booked, having another child literally take, well, usually you think it's just playing, right? That's just regular finger paint and fingerprint. Oh, brilliant idea, teacher. We're going to just make it seem like she's being booked. Even to bring her arms around her back and have the other little boy that we see there holding them. It would be interesting to hear the language, the dynamic, the directive she was giving these 2-year-olds to even rehearse and have a play. So what are next steps moving forward? I'd like to know, are the parents going to keep their daughter in this school? It would raise questions too, like how is she being treated otherwise? Those things just come to my mind as well, Faraji. I wonder how other parents feel too. Do they have pushback with this? Are they supporting the parents of the Black little girl? There's just so many questions here. This just should have never happened.
It should have never happened. Now, moving forward, Building Brains Academy says that they're now requiring its faculty to get any deviations from the approved curriculum approved by the school administration to avoid similar incidents. So that's what they're saying, because this was a unplanned,
there was
spontaneous
no process in place before that now you're requiring this? Is this
there probably was
teacher, to reprimand the teacher? Like, what the hell is going on?
No, and I agree with you, but I bet you they probably have been deviating from the curriculum for a minute, and it's just because of the nature of this particular deviation that they have to create a policy. But I'm sure, I mean, teachers, y'all do it. Teachers do this all the time. You don't always go from everything that's in a book. I mean, you as an educator go into the classroom and you have your own brain. You have your own way of seeing things. And if the students don't get that lesson, if you can't get that lesson across to the students, you're going to have to come up with another way. Not to say that this was justified,
right?
But I'm just saying in general, as an educator, y'all have to be creative in getting, that lesson across to students, right? So that's part of the thing. But I think to your point, it's just that, you know, we're in the space now where this stuff is done so normal. It's like, oh, okay, this is such a normalized behavior. Like, we're going to take a major moment and just kind of like whittle it down to an older Black woman getting arrested. You know what I'm saying? Like I wonder if they did the whole thing where she got on the bus.
Right.
She sat down.
And I would like to know.
Like it goes from this is Rosa Parks. She stood for civil rights, and then boom. Okay, now act scene 1. You arrested. Fucking like, what the hell is that?
I mean, it's hard to gather all these 2-year-olds to do something at the same time because it's just that age where they're so inquisitive and, you know, just running around all over the place. So I would be interested, like I said, Faraji, to see how she actually rehearsed these children to play these parts. How long was rehearsal? You know, giving them rehearsed lines, you know, for them to actually demonstrate and make the moves, to pull her arms behind her back and to have the other little boy holding her arms to, you know, facilitate an arrest. You know, that would take so much effort, you know, especially with 2-year-olds, you know, to try and keep them still. So I can't imagine, like, you know what, did she even think that she wouldn't get any pushback? I wonder what the teacher's reaction was. Like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that, you know, this is going to be such a big deal, you know, and then the white tears come. And that's the shit that really just pisses me off, because it's just like, you had to know. But at the
but you know what though, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Like, you know what, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Hey, Corinne, I'm gonna be real with you. Some white people, and again, y'all gotta remember, this is I remember listening to a book, and it was talking about how to see people deeply. This was written by David Brooks, New York Times columnist. And he asked the question, what is human? What does it mean to be human? And one of his explanation is, to be human means that you have a different perspective on life, right? So I thought that was pretty deep. I was like, okay, that's deep. But it makes me think that in this moment, when you walk between being a white person in America versus a Black person in America, 2 different walks. We can speculate, we can guess, we can act as if we know. 2 different realities. And along with coming along with those 2 different realities is 2 different thinkings. And I'm saying this to set this up, to say that I truly believe that some white people in this country don't have no clue or no sense of, if I do this, how it's going to be received. I truly believe that. I truly believe. I don't think they have it, because we think about it.
It's happening as of late. Still.
Yeah, but we think about, look, our race is for Black people. We are forced and confronted to think about race every second of the day that we are breathing. You see what I'm saying? And I'm just saying racism, I'm talking about if you're white in America, you're not thinking about your race.
You're not. You're really not.
It's not emphasized like
it's not
white people.
A privilege, but
you exactly. You only get when you start to wake up. When you see this awakening, this level of consciousness from white, something happened. A moment, an issue, an incident. You're not thinking about this the same way Black folks. We think about it. We actually are true. We watch TV, we smoke, we drink because we try not to think about our race.
Mm-hmm. You know, something else, Roger, that comes to mind. It's interesting considering, with Florida, how we've had so many books banned with, so many different parts of Black history, which is essentially American history. But the teacher still felt compelled, like, I'm going to have my 2-year-old class, reenact a play with Rosa Parks and demonstrate and show her being arrested and all the things, right?
Yeah.
The irony there, what it's kind of like what we're willing to get them to know, but what we don't want them to know at the same time, that you would take a group of 2-year-olds who I don't even really know if they understood, what was happening. Like, why would a 2-year-old even understand really what's happening in the moment? They probably just think it's like some sort of play or fun in the moment, just the movement they're making, right? Just like they're in dance class to like put my arms behind my back. They're probably not even really cognizant, of specifically what that moment meant, because they're 2.
Right.
And it saddens me, because this is where you start to see like the innocence of children being stripped away, because the teacher didn't think, or maybe she did think. You just never know.
You never know.
It is, right?
You never know. You never know. Let's get some thoughts from the crew here, Corinna, because folks are pissed off, to say the least, that this is happening. We definitely should be. Janae, you said she had the paint ready, and this was premeditated. Mm-hmm. Well, the only reason I'm going to push back on this, because it is a classroom full of 2- and 3-year-olds, so paint was already there.
So she was resourcul in utilizing what's already available in her classroom.
Premeditated. The paint was there. I think the paint was there, but I mean, I see what you're saying.
It's preschool.
It's
so
preschool.
She has to be resourceful to be like, okay, what do I have in my classroom supply to use as props?
Right. Like, how do I do that? Okay. Yeah. But I see your point, Janae. I see your point. Davey Floater, you said that patriotic education DeSantis was talking about. They probably in there watching PragerU Rosa Parks. Wow. Here's the question, though. CC Knight, you posted this. You said, who gave permission to post pics? I'm going to go take it. Let's go take it back, CC. Who the hell took the picture?
That's another thing. And you know what? Does the school, I wonder if, maybe when the students are actually enroll into the school, there's different forms you need to sign. Sometimes that could include like maybe a media release. So that could be something that they might use, as a defense to say, well, the parent had previously signed the media release, or I don't know if there's a clause in there, if maybe it's for like a special event like this play or something they put on, that maybe they need to sign a new media release. There's always some gray area that you have to sort out. But yeah, to your point, why did they post the pictures, right? But I would imagine that could be some sort of recourse the school could use in defense. Well, we already had a media release on file signed by the parent. I'm not saying that makes it right. I'm just saying that could be the case. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Monkey Confessions, you said it is a minority school, so it could be a Black or Latino teacher. Minority could also include women. So it could just be a women-owned school, women-operated school, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's racial. So minority also includes women. So that's the other part about that.
Sean Ryan, but given the location in Florida, I strongly doubt that. But I mean, we could be wrong. But
I mean, that's true. That's true. I mean, but you mean to tell me, and then that makes the situation even worse. If it's a Black woman that's involved in the leadership of the school, or a Black woman or Black women who are involved in this, would make the situation even worse.
Yeah.
That would make the situation even worse. Sean Ryan, you said it also shows that the teacher doesn't have an understanding of child psychology or how to teach race to children.
And is this the first time that race has been introduced to these children, right?
That's a great question.
I want to examine some of the other lessons they've been learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go we got some new crew members joining us. Kathy Wigley, you say, Kathy, teacher could have used a white or an Asian child or a Hispanic. It did not have to be the only Black child. At what age they really don't understand the difference between Black and white.
I wonder what reaction
Thank you, Kathy.
What the reaction would have been from parents if that was the case.
If it was a Black teacher that did that.
Or even if it was a Black teacher or not, what if it was another child in the classroom? playing Rosa.
See, that's it. And see, that's the only question I have about this. That's the only pushback I have about with the sentiment. I get it, all of the other stuff, but do we? So I guess this is the answer to the question. If you're going to introduce Rosa Parks, talk about who she is and not what she necessarily went through until you're dealing with a group of students that are able to understand it. You don't want to introduce Rosa Parks or any historical figure and you talk about their trials, talk about their accomplishments, the things that they were able to do.
Why didn't that happen?
I get it. Again, people don't think, I'm gonna be honest, y'all. Y'all heard the old saying, common sense ain't always common.
Nope.
Look, I gotta take a quick pause. When we come back, we can talk a little bit more about this. Plus, I got some stuff. So to end the week on a high note, because as much as this stuff has been, it's been a long week, folks, and we're going into the holiday season. I wanted to make sure that y'all ended the week on a high note. So when we come back, I'll share with you some stories that are happening right now. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Got my sister Corinna and Denise checking in as well. Man, oh man, that story, I mean, a lot of folks, Corinna, I like what Pretty Brown Mimi 726 said. Here in Florida, Republicans want to teach fantasy history, not the truth. Yes. Ming Lee, Natasha Surge, you expressed your disdain for this whole situation, Ming Lee. You said, so now you got to send your little kids to school and tell the teacher, don't involve my child in any plays and skits right now. I think the whole thing is, as we close this part of the conversation, is do we, and Corinna, you're going to have to answer this. I know this is a big question, so I'm not going to expect you to have a long dissertation about it, but do we have to be specific as Black parents to tell teachers and administrators, look, if you're teaching my child about this, I need to know because I want to include this resource. I want this part of the history being taught. Do we have to start doing that now? Well, or do you see that happening? That we're going to have to start telling teachers that, yeah, you got your curriculum, but because I haven't taught them, I haven't spoken to my child about this, and you're going to introduce this to my child, I need to know how you're going to introduce it. Do we have to have those conversations now?
I think, yes, we do. Because that's just the temperament of where we are right now, unfortunately. But I think the bigger question is too, are the schools actually sharing the curriculum, right? And also, so I think it's both sides where the schools should be transparent in sharing the curriculum. I mean, how they choose to share it, there's, either they're giving you that syllabus at the start of the school year. You can find it on their website, and then also parents just being inquisitive and following up to see what their child is learning in the classroom. But yeah, unfortunately, we've just seen so many similar instances, right, where children are just doing a lot of things that we would deem to be inappropriate, especially when it comes to the complexity of race and what we have had to deal with as a people and our struggles. So yeah, we are at that point where we just have to be on the up and up to kind of mediate these situations from it becoming, out of control, because we're seeing it more often than not. So yeah, I think we are at that point, Faraji, where we have to just, be inquisitive and ask, like, what are we learning? And just to check in and follow up, hey, what's in the curriculum this week, right?
Right.
And I'm on the flip side, not to take away from this situation, but there are some parents who aren't always on the up and up as to what.
I'm about to say, come on, Corinne. I'm about to say, you're talking to us, man. You're talking to us. I'm sorry.
Like, I just got to keep it real. And, sometimes it could be just because life is happening to the best of them and they're just, not cognizant or interested in checking homework with their kids. And some who, just aren't interested. I just got to go ahead and say it. I've been in spaces sometimes where I've had to call my students in the office and I'm like, hey, call your mom, get them on the phone because I can't seem to reach them, and that's just real and it's unfortunate. But yeah, considering all of what's happening, we have to be more involved and more inquisitive in their child's education. And the last thing I will say related to this, we see what's happening with those white parents, right? How Christopher Rufo could just kick up a narrative where it's one like wildfire, where they just seem to think that critical race theory is being taught in schools. And now all of a sudden, they're so interested in their children's education. I'm kind of like, where the hell were you before?
Right.
Because, like, this information was accessible to you. And unfortunately, it took someone to be cultivating this narrative for you to now have a high interest. Like, how come you didn't already know what was happening, even though that's not actually happening, if that makes sense, right, Faraji? So
no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we always have to be in tune. But yeah, to your point, yeah, we're just we got to constantly ask the questions and constantly just be looking over to see the quality of our child's education and to make sure, these harmful things aren't happening.
All right, but here's the thing, and I know we're pressed for time, but it opens up, and maybe, Corinna, maybe we could talk a little bit more about this maybe next week, the final week of the year. Because I feel like it's a slippery slope. It's opened up a Pandora's box, right?
Yeah.
If you send your child to a school, if you have this belief that you're making the right decision of placing your child in a particular school, you got to have trust and faith that that school is going to teach your child according to your values and what you expect, right? So you do that. Now, there's not to say that every school is perfect. We know that's not the case. There are going to be some teachers that are going to exceed your expectations and others that won't even meet them. So we understand that. But I think the slippery slope is that if parents are brought in on every element of the curriculum, it opens the door for the teachers to feel like their state that not only do they have to create a curriculum or use a curriculum that's in approval by the school district, by the student, by the teachers, the principal. Now you got to do it by the parents and the guardians. And some parents don't know what the hell they're talking about in some cases, right? So you can say, I've literally heard this with some parents talking about, I don't want Common Core taught. You're like, well, Common Core is right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you get into this slippery slope, I feel like, when you bring parents too much into it, especially if you have parents that aren't familiar with the art and skill and the science of educating children, especially at different grade levels,
this is true.
Different reading levels.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be every single level, but to the point of this particular story, I think that the parents should have been notified that their child was going to be engaging in some sort of class skit or play or whatever the matter would be, right? And whatever the play or whatever it was going to be about, but just adding on top of that, it's just this singling out this toddler, 2-year-old black girl,
Oh yeah, I get it. I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want my daughter to be singled out for that. And I'd be like, I would be pissed. I'm just saying, it's to be pissed. But now you got all these different complexities, and it's a lot to take in. And I'm like seven checking in. 7, welcome to the chat and to the crew. You said it's exhausting and tiring to have to keep breaking down how to properly teach our kids while we work. Extremely exhausting. And I know Sean Ryan, you posted this, that you said parents need to have access to the school's weekly lessons. It sounds good on paper. Until you have 2, 3, 4 children, you work in 2 jobs, and imagine if you got to look through all of these lesson plans and be like, okay, yes, this is. I'm not trying.
Sean Ryan, there are a lot of parents who do have access, and some are not taking advantage of the access.
I'm like 7. It's exhausting, man.
Something all around wrong, right? Some taking advantage, some not taking advantage. So we just got to do better overall.
We just got to do better. But big shout out to the NAACP. Yeah. Hopefully, Building Brains Academy get the point of this situation and don't have this dumb shit ever happening again. Okay. Don't have it ever happening again. All right, really quickly. Let's end this thing on a high note. It's been a fantastic week, and we're good. First and foremost, Simone Biles. Y'all know Simone Biles, right? Yeah. Everybody knows about Simone Biles, right? She had a fantastic year this year. She made her comeback in gymnastics. She became a national champion once again, as she was awarded the she had a record-breaking 8th U.S. national championships. She was just being honored by Associated Press as the 2023 Female Athlete of the Year. There we go. Can we get a little something for Simone Biles? Man, amazing. You know,
and I look
some
forward
people
to seeing her in the Olympic Games next year. And shout out to Simone Biles. She has her mom is from Belize. So, you know,
say it again.
A little Belize in me. I said shout out to Simone Biles, who frequently visits Belize. Her mom is from Belize. So, yeah.
Okay. That's awesome right there. That's awesome right there. And big shout out to her and her husband. I know she just got married this year too.
Yes,
I think it was this year.
Newlyweds.
And so they're still newlyweds and everything. Her husband came out though. Corinna, when it's that time for you, I'm gonna need to have this conversation with your husband. Could be. Her husband came out in an interview, said he did not even know who Simone Biles was when he first met her.
I don't know. Maybe he doesn't watch gymnastics. I'll give some grace. I mean, but he is an athlete. Maybe that worked out better.
He went on it like, yo, I didn't even know who she was for real. Like,
yeah.
Well, she got a bigger name than you, bro. She got a bigger name than you.
Know all of her accomplishments, but maybe you heard.
I mean, you ain't got to know all her accomplishments, but it is Simone Biles. Like, there's no way in the world that you dating Simone Biles be like, yo, I didn't even know who she was.
In the world,
like. All right, let's go. All right. Also, this weekend it is Color Purple weekend. If you have not checked out Oprah, she's been doing. Oprah been pushing this film heavy, y'all. Mm-hmm. Heavy. She wants so many people to come out to see The Color Purple this weekend.
To be honest, I was hesitant at first because I don't like remakes of things, but I did see the musical on Broadway when Cynthia Erivo was playing Celie.
Yeah,
maybe about 10 years ago. But yeah, knowing now that it's actually the musical adaptation to the screen, and I've heard rave reviews. I'm looking forward to it.
Color Purple is happening this weekend. Absolutely. I love Fantasia. I love Taraji.
Me too. Yeah.
I follow Oprah.
Well casted. Yeah.
I follow Oprah, y'all. I follow Oprah. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I follow Oprah. So I think this is interesting, but more importantly, beyond just that, did you know that 40 years ago, Alice Walker made history as author of The Color Purple, and she became the first Black woman to receive a Pulitzer Prize for Literature as a result of her writing The Color Purple. That was in 1983, the first Black woman to win a Pulitzer Prize for Literature. She won the National Book Award also for Color Purple, and over the course of her career, she has gone on to write over 40 genre-spanning books. But The Color Purple was a landmark book. It has been depicted in both in screen, on stage, and in other depictions. Mm-hmm. It is a force to be reckoned with. And so, you know, if you look at the story of The Color Purple, and more importantly, look at the woman behind the story of The Color Purple, y'all will understand how major of this piece of literary, what did he call it? Literary masterpiece. There it is. I'm trying to get the words out.
And based on the interviews that the cast has been doing with press, I remember the director mentioning how moved Alice Walker was when she was on set and in some of the scenes. So it sounds like she's really pleased with how this film turned out as well. So.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. You brought Oprah into it in back in the day, years ago, and now Oprah is taking it and making it and updating it for this generation. If you follow Oprah on Facebook, every day she has been highlighting. She calls it the Color Purple Highlights, where she highlights the actors and the stories behind bringing these actors to the project. And there has been some rumors that her and Taraji P. Henson, I just saw this today, some rumors that her and Taraji P. Henson may not be on the same page. People say, oh, they look like they beefing.
Taraji recently posted on her IG how supportive Oprah was of her.
I know, well, that's my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
Oprah has posted something about Taraji today saying that she had to have Taraji into this, as part of this project. So sometimes you can't, people want to eat, like sometimes media will just lie. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Sometimes media will put out stuff just to cause a lot of, infighting and friction. Okay, most of the time. So if y'all want to check out Color Purple this weekend on Monday, because it comes out on Christmas Day, this is going to be another movement. But they got the cast list is crazy, absolutely insane. So big shout out to the cast, big shout out to Oprah for continuing this story. And again, we congratulate Alice Walker for being the first Black woman to receive the Pulitzer Prize for literature 40 years ago. And guess what? 40 years later, the Color Purple still lives on.
Well, thank you for having me in your co-host seat today.
Come on. This might happen more often. You might have to take you off your job. Coretta, how can people follow you on social media?
Oh, you guys can follow me at Ren_Ren84. You can hit me up on Instagram and follow me there. Also follow the Scholarship Plug. That is my friend and colleague's nonprofit organization. I am also board chair for the board of directors. So follow us. We're doing great things, especially if you have high school students. We would love to be of assistance.
There it is. All right. There it is. I appreciate you, Ren84. Follow her on social media. Coretta Denise, thank you so much, folks. That's going to do it for us. Absolutely. Folks, you make sure y'all do your due diligence. Support us here at blackstarnetwork.com. Follow us on social media, and of course, give something. But stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, follow me on Blackstar on social media at The Real Faraji on Instagram. I would love to hear what you have to say. All right. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing. We will talk next week. Have a safe and happy winter break or holiday break, all of you. And as we also next week, when we come back, we'll also be talking about Kwanzaa as well to close out the year of 2023 and so much more. So thank you so much for tuning in and talk to you soon. Peace.